See, heard live across the nation, this is Take Action News with David Shuster.
Many of the world's great movements of thought and action have flowed from the work of a single man.
There is work to be done. The state of our economy calls for action, bold and swift, and we will act.
We will take action when action is required.
Good afternoon, everybody. David Shuster here on Take Action News. This is the weekend of Saturday, December the 8th, 2012. So glad to have you listening on WCPT We Act Radio. And a special shout out to everybody who is watching us for the first time on YouTube, Take Action News TV. Yes, this radio show, which goes out over syndicated stations nationally and also internationally, and of course live here on We Act Radio. We are now also available on YouTube. So for everybody watching our video, this is the beginning of something great. And folks, if you're listening, you want to see the YouTube again, it's Take Action News TV on YouTube. Very easy to find, and we're going to be splitting up the show into segments so that you can see each of our interviews and watch them literally when you're on your computer. When you're surfing YouTube, you can now be part of the Take Action News experience. So special shout out to all of you who are doing that. We want to welcome our own Pete Johnny Depp Callahan, our news director, who's on board today to help us with some of this new camera work. Daniel Marins, our executive producer, as always, is in the house. Mitch Molaski, vice president in charge of board operations. And what a great show we have for everybody coming up. And by the way, if you ever want to visit our station, 1918 Martin Luther King Avenue in the heart of Anacostia, right here in Washington, D.C. And in this show, the next 3 hours, and again, what a great program we have. We're going to be talking about the latest in terms of, wow, they call it the fiscal cliff. I'm not sure that's the right word, but the Congress and the Obama administration, they're in tough negotiations over what to do about the Bush tax cuts that are set to expire at the end of the year. If nothing gets done, then tax cuts rise on everybody, not just the wealthy, not just the upper middle class, but everybody will see their taxes go up January the 2nd if nothing gets done. The president is holding out and saying, look, Republicans, you can extend the Bush-era tax cuts for 98% of Americans, everybody making $200,000 or less, but they must be allowed to expire on the wealthiest, because that's what President Obama campaigned on. Republicans right now are saying no. The president is also in discussions with Republicans about the overall budget and what to do about the debt ceiling, raising the nation's debt ceiling, which is due to come up at the end of January. So we'll get into a deep discussion about that. Also, the big story that everybody's been talking about this week, and this affects somewhat on policy and take action, and that is the issue of guns. It's been a week since the Kansas City Chiefs linebacker killed his girlfriend in Kansas City at their home and then went to the Chiefs practice facility and in front of the coach and general manager committed suicide. There's been a huge backlash at the NFL for how the NFL handled it. There's also been a huge backlash at right-wing media for criticizing Bob Costas for talking about the issue of guns at halftime of an NFL football game. So we'll talk with Dave Zirin from The Nation about that. We'll also talk with our own Cliff Schechter, who's an expert on gun control policy. And then in our second hour, we've got an amazing story about there's an effort that seems to be a grassroots effort to try to deal with the debt, but like a lot of these, what I like to call AstroTurf campaigns, this one is actually corporate funded. In other words, a bunch of corporations getting together with their CEOs and all their money and putting together this fake organization to say, hey, we must do something about the debt, as if it's the American people who are so concerned about it when it's actually corporations who are concerned for their own financial interest. And we're going to talk with a reporter who blew the lid on that story. Charlie Mitchell's going to come up and talk about some of the efforts in the Senate to change the rules to make it easier in terms of stopping what's known as a filibuster, and that is when one senator can gum up the entire Senate by pledging to talk forever and ever. They have never been forced to actually talk, but that may change. President Obama's also got a number of foreign policy challenges on his plate. We'll talk with everyone about that. Social media with Alan Rosenblatt, and Daniel Marins is a pretty good how it should be. Daniel, what are we looking at in terms of how it should be later in this in the show?
Well, David, on Thursday at midnight, there was a very, very important change that occurred in the nation, and that is that marijuana was officially legal in Washington State. There was a party at the Space Needle, we're told, though apparently consumption of pot in public, you have to do in the privacy of your home, is still illegal, though I think the cops were giving out warnings. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the policy implications of that and why what's going on in Washington State is how it should be across the country. Not because it's gonna help Cheetos sales, not because Hostess just closed and they're looking for a brand rebound, but because I'm talking about Munchies. But because it actually makes pot less safe and makes the culture around it less safe and the connections that we have to criminal organizations greater by keeping it illegal.
That's a great how it should be. So, folks, again, you've heard the layout of the show. You can always go through YouTube and pick up the individual clips or continue to listen. And by the way, we have a great podcast if you want to listen to the audio when you're driving around or doing things. So it's go to iTunes again. It's Take Action News Podcast. In about 30 seconds, we're going to pause, though, and let our syndicated stations catch up with us. All those stations from Chicago to Grand Rapids to Pennsylvania, all over the nation, all over the world, and let them catch up with us. But what a great show we've got coming up. And remember, you can always catch our podcast on weactradio.com or takeactionnews.com or on iTunes. We've also got a pretty good website, takeactionnews.com. But we're going to pause in just a couple seconds, let our syndicated stations catch up with us. You are listening and watching to Take Action News with David Shuster. We pause right now.